Well, good afternoon. Senate Republicans want to take another step in advancing Minnesota. We talked about health insurance relief and reform, and we've done that, and we're working on that. We released our tax bill, which provides a lot of relief for Minnesota. And today we want to talk about our transportation bill. And I have Senator Scott Newman here to give you the details about that. But we feel like this is one of the areas that is unfinished business. I think since 2008, we haven't had a transportation bill moving Minnesota forward, having more money towards roads and bridges. That's unfinished business that we need to get done. And in case you don't know, or as a reminder, we spend about $2 billion a year on our transportation infrastructure. But most experts think that that's not enough. You've heard numbers significantly higher than that. This bill will provide $3.6 billion of new money towards transportation over the next 10 years. And that means that this is a significant step with new money towards transportation. And with that, I want to turn it over to Senator Scott Newman, and then we'll both answer any questions you might have after that.
Thank you, Senator Gazelka. Good afternoon, everybody. I thought what I would do is just touch on the transportation bill that it will be coming out very shortly. But before I start, I just wanted to mention that we believe that transportation is in fact one of the core functions of government. And that is why we are doing our best to really focus on transportation in this session. And I would like you to recognize that we're putting more new money into transportation than probably any other area of the government. The bill that we are talking about is going to be achieved by raising $400 million in general fund targets for the fiscal year 18-19. The general fund dollars associated with transportation-related sales taxes, such as the tax on auto parts, are being redirected into roads and bridges. The $400 million will flow into the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund, with further distribution for state highways, county roads, and city streets. There will be an additional $117 million that we are going to direct from the MnDOT Flex Highway account and redirect it into the Trunk Highway Fund. And that's an important part of the overall plan, because notice that we are dealing now with dedicated funding for purposes of transportation. That is something that I think that the people in the state of Minnesota have been asking for a long time now. And with this bill, we are establishing that statutory dedication of funds for the future. In terms of the distribution of the revenue, we are going to put $343 million of new money into the Trunk Highway Fund. We're going to have $106 million that goes into the county roads system. We'll have $33 million go into the city streets system. We'll have $9 million for the town roads and bridges account. And then for only the second time, at least that I can remember, we are going to allocate on a one-time basis $10 million for small cities for their city streets, and that's for towns that are under 5,000. In addition to the numbers that I've just given you, we are going to increase our trunk highway bonding by something in the neighborhood of $300 million. And here I would add that keep in mind right now interest rates are pretty low. I believe that the interest rates will be growing in the next few years, and given that fact, it's probably a good idea to begin looking at putting some additional funding into the trunk highway bond system. In addition to that, we have federal funds that are coming in to the state of Minnesota or under the FAST Act. We are getting the $105 million for the fiscal year 2017, and then in addition to that, we will get $361 million in FAST Act money for the fiscal years 18 and 19. And that brings us up then to the $1.3 billion in terms of new spending in transportation in the next biennium. There will also be a number of policy issues that will be coming up in the forthcoming bill, and I just want to mention two of them. We are going to have a portion of the bill on policy that addresses some concerns that the legislative auditor brought up last year in his report from March of 2016, in which he outlined a lack of transparency and accountability in the project selection process involving MnDOT. And here I would specifically say, for instance, if you look at the OLA report from March of 2016, in it the Office of Legislative Auditor criticizes MnDOT in the Corridors of Commerce projects because they were not following the statutory mandated criteria, and in fact had created their own criteria in the Corridors of Commerce program. And so that is an example of why we have now stepped in with this bill, and we are mandating that MnDOT follow the recommendations as outlined in the Office of the Administrative, or Office of the Legislative Auditor. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is something that has really has bothered me a great deal, and that involves Southwest Light Rail. There's a tremendous amount of controversy swirling around within the state of Minnesota on Southwest Light Rail. And frankly, I don't know, and I don't think you know, how this is eventually going to play out. But there is a law in Minnesota that says that the state of Minnesota is on the hook for 50% of the operating expenses of light rail. And yet Minnesota as a state, the state itself, is really not in the game. We're not involved in creating and planning and constructing the light rail projects. And I simply think that if light rail is in fact going to be planned and constructed in the state of Minnesota, then the state of Minnesota should be involved somehow if we are going to be on the hook for 50% of the operating costs. And this bill eliminates that 50%. And I think that that is candidly a reasonable and responsible approach, given the fact that we aren't involved in creating the light rail. I think that you will find that the bill, once we roll it out, is pretty straightforward. I don't honestly see, I don't see gimmicks, I don't see shifts or anything of that nature. The plan, frankly, hinges on taking existing sales tax money involving items that are involved with motor vehicles and redirecting it to the Trunk Highway Fund and making it statutorily dedicated. Those are my comments, and Senator Gazelka and I will answer any questions that you may have.
To be clear on this, the sheet that was handed out, the top box where it says 400 million from auto-related sales taxes, that's over 10 years. All these numbers are for 10 years?
Which biennium? That's the numbers that I'm talking about are for the biennium and the next biennium. That's what I'm talking about. I can't tell you what is going to be there 10 years from now. I can tell you that we are doing our best to statutorily dedicate the existing sales tax revenue, take that existing revenue, statutorily dedicate it, and spend it on roads and bridges. That's the best that I can do. I can't tell you what's going to be there in 10 years. And neither can I tell you that we don't have a constitutional dedication, because I don't have that available to me.
So do you stand by 3.6 billion?
Over the next 10 years, that is if you project out our numbers over the next 10 years, that is the sum that we believe will be raised.
But you can't predict that, because you just said you don't know what will be coming in.
I don't know what a future legislature is going to do, and I can't tell you with certainty what the sales tax revenue is going to be. No one can predict that with certainty. What I can tell you with certainty is that we are doing the very best that we can to provide the certainty to the folks at the county and the state and the municipal level that have to do the planning for our roads and bridges, and that takes some time to plan for the future. So what we're doing is we are doing the best we can with the tools that are available to us right now to statutorily dedicate those funds.
Senator, why not send a constitutional amendment to the voters to make the dedication constitutional?
We can, if such a bill would be brought forward and passed, but I don't have that available to me right now. What I have available to me right now is the ability to statutorily dedicate the funds. If any senator or any representative wants to come forward with a bill in the future to constitutionally dedicate those funds, they can certainly do that. But we can't do it now because it hasn't yet been passed by the voters.
Senator, you talk about auto-related sales taxes. Does that include anything besides auto parts?
It will be a combination of auto parts, sales tax on leased vehicles, sales tax on rental vehicles.
That biennial budget number, the number you're controlling in this budget is 1.3 billion? That's,
Yes.
okay to me. And talk about, you mentioned earlier that that's the biggest increase of any budget area. Why did you get the happy-lucky target?
Because we can smile and joke around a little bit. The truth is, I think the people in the state of Minnesota are demanding it. That's the reason. I think the people in the state of Minnesota want their infrastructure fixed. It's the first thing that they see when they walk out of their door in the morning, is their ability to get to work or to get to church or get to shopping, whatever it is that they're going to do. And our infrastructure and our transportation benefits everybody, irrespective of whether or not you're actually driving on the roads. Everybody has to eat, and all of the food comes to us over our transportation system.
Senator, there's no mention in here of transit, but it's always, the DFL has always demanded, and the governor's always demanded, that as a trade-off for all the funding that you want for roads and bridges, that there be something for Metro Transit. Have you taken that into consideration?
I have, and it's a very difficult issue to handle this year, and the reason is this. I want you to understand that I fully recognize the importance of transit. We have to have it both in the metro area, but we also have to have it out in cornfield country where I live. And I do recognize how important it is. But I would ask you and your readers to recognize what a state of flux transit is in the state of Minnesota right now. If you take into consideration the controversy that I've already mentioned that is swirling around Southwest Light Rail, and if you take into consideration the fact that we are now dealing with CTIB may or may not dissolve, is going to have a major impact on transit in the state of Minnesota. And I just think it would be irresponsible of me or any other legislator to move forward with significant sums of money being put into transit at this point when we really don't know what it's going to look like. We, for instance, don't know what, if anything, the feds are going to do when it comes to transportation money. And I've already cited significant sums that we expect are going to come into the state of Minnesota from the feds on under the FAST Act, which is surface transportation. We don't know what they are going to do when it comes to this light rail money. And so I think that we have to be a little bit cautious, and we will, hopefully, it would be my intention to address the long-term transportation, long-term transit issues by picking those up next year and really taking a hard look at them.
Senator, follow-up on that. Would you clarify the 50% operation costs that the state usually assumes for light rail? You're eliminating the 50%, essentially not funding light rail, correct?
Minnesota hasn't funded light rail. State of Minnesota has been on the hook for 10% of the capital costs to create it. Those capital costs are really a significant amount of money, that 10%. What I'm suggesting to you is that we don't know what is going to happen with the funds for light rail because we don't know what the federal government is going to do. The 50% figure that I'm talking about is the future operating costs. Right now, I believe the state of Minnesota is on the hook for the 2 light rail projects that we've built to date. And what I want to do is guard against putting the state of Minnesota and its voters on the hook for 50% of the operating cost on future light rail that is going to be built. And I think it's an eminently reasonable position to take because the legislature is not involved in building the light rail projects.
Just one more on that, if I could. Does that mean, what's the practical effect of that, not funding the operation costs of a future light rail?
Practical effect, as far as I am concerned, is the voters in the state of Minnesota are not going to be on the hook for paying for operational costs for a transportation system that their representatives have not been involved in creating or building.
Who pays for it?
I would assume whoever it is that builds it. And right now, the state of Minnesota is not building one.
Is it your hope, though, that this stops the Southwest Light Rail project?
I personally have never been a real big fan of light rail. I think it is candidly 19th century technology in the 21st century. I think it's extremely expensive to build at round numbers, $100 million a mile. And it's equally inflexible as to where you are going to move in order to pick up your passengers. I really have to believe in my heart that there are better methods for us to utilize within the transit industry and have it be much more flexible and much less costly. So I will admit I am not a great fan of light rail.
The provision only applies to new light rail projects?
That would be my intention because I think we are already committed by prior law to pick up the tab on the 2 existing. Now, that's my personal interpretation. If somebody wants to challenge it, I suppose they would have a right to do that. But that would be my interpretation. It is my intention to protect the voters in the state of Minnesota from those operational costs in the future.
So on transit in general, both Twin Cities and Cornfield Country, is your proposal to maintain existing funding to transit projects?
That is correct.
No increases?
A slight bump, but for all intents and purposes, to maintain the existing funding.
Senator Newman, is there a point at which you would see a fuel tax being raised in this state ever again?
Ever?
Ever?
Have you got a crystal ball for me?
I mean, is it in your mind it should be an every 20-year type, revisited every 20 years or every 30 years? What's the time? When's the time to do it?
Let me answer the question this way, is I don't know what a legislature 20 years from now is going to do or not going to do. Right, I live right now. And I, number one, think that there is lots and lots of money in the system. And when I say in the system, I'm talking the totality of our budget. We probably got $80 billion that we have accessible for us to spend. So I look at it from that standpoint. I also look at it from a standpoint is that if you think about gas tax, you know, the world is changing. When it was first instituted, cars were nowhere near as efficient as they are now. We didn't have the mass transit systems like we have now. Electric cars are coming. And so I'm really not at all enthused about looking at a new gas tax to fund transportation. I think we've got to be much more inventive than to just go back and extract more money from our taxpayers.
Maybe Bernie Leader's mileage tax or something like that? Or?
I'll tell you what, next year, it is my intention to hold hearings on any kind of new and innovative ideas that folks on either side of the aisle have. I've already promised Senator Franzen she has an idea. She wants to have a hearing on a mileage tax. and she's going to get a hearing on that next year. Anybody else that comes forward with new and innovative, out-of-the-box ideas on how we can raise revenue for purposes of transit and transportation, I'm willing to listen to.
For the leader, it's probably your question. If you take money out of sales tax, what is that coming from? What programs are you going to take it out of?
Well, first of all, we have a $1.65 billion surplus, and as you look into the future, we have surpluses into the future as well. And so we're saying now is the perfect time to take that sales tax on auto parts and directly direct it where it should go in the first place, and that is transportation. That does create a hole in our general fund, and we have to decide, what we're going to fill that with and where. And so but if you look at the surplus we have now plus the surplus going forward, we're pretty confident that we can do that and still take care of some of the other budget needs that we have, including tax relief. And then one other thing I want to mention about light rail, we are not focusing on light rail this year. You've heard that they may dissolve CTIB, and if they do that, Hennepin County could raise their sales tax, and they can fund it by themselves if they want to. So it's not, that's just not where our focus is going to be. We really feel like roads and bridges have been neglected, and we are listening to the people of Minnesota, and we're saying we're going to get that done.
The Metro Transit budget is running in the red and looks to go deeper in the red going forward, in part because of the rising costs of metro mobility. And the Citizens League has proposed that the state should fund metro mobility in another way. Is that something that's on your radar for this year?
I don't think it's on our radar for this year. And then the other thing that they have to look at is the fees that they charge. I don't know that they've done a lot with those either lately. And so, we're all looking at different pieces of it, but the Senate Republicans this year, our piece of the puzzle we think needs to get done is that we actually get a roads and bridges bill done. People have been asking, you see the Chamber of Commerce, you see the trades, different sides of the issue are saying, please get this done. And as we went out door to door, people were saying, we need to get our roads and bridges done, so we're committed to getting that done. Anything else on any other part of the budget? Are we good?
On the plan that's being presented today, my colleague had just an analysis put out today that found that the greater Minnesota gets more in transportation dollars than the Metro does, and the discrepancy there. Could any one of you just perhaps address that discrepancy there and how the Senate Republican transportation plan jives with that?
I guess I would not describe it, the proposal as rural versus urban. I wouldn't describe it as one side is getting more. What we are doing is we are dumping as much money as we possibly can, ultimately so that it gets into the trunk highway fund, and from there it will be distributed in accordance with the constitutional formula.
To follow up, but there's also this emphasis here on the townships and making sure that they get $148 million in combined funding over the next biennium to spend as they see fit. Metro wants money for light rail. I mean, how is this not a rural versus urban?
Well, as Senator Gazelka said, what we are concentrating is on roads and bridges. That's where we are concentrating. And as I have said, the issue involving transit is really very difficult to grasp right now because there's so much confusion going on with it. So what we have decided we're going to do is we are going to concentrate on roads and bridges. And we will come back to the transit issue as we must. But right now, I really believe that we would make a mistake by trying to fund with the increases that you're talking about, when we really do not know what transit is going to look like a year from now for the reasons that I've already stated.
Chairman, will you earmark any money for specific projects, such as one that maybe a couple of you up here might be especially interested in?
There are three constituent requests. I don't call them earmarks, I call them constituent requests. None of them are in my district. And I think it's important that the representatives of the folks who send us here have some input as to what roads and bridges are going to be fixed. So there are some constituent requests that we've got in the bill But I don't know if you were joking or not, Don, but the answer is not in my district.
Which ones?
State Highway 14, Highway 212 in Carver County, and Highway 12 in Hennepin County.
Do you drive any of those to go back and forth?
Usually, I take Highway 7 home. Fair enough?
Let me address that too briefly. And Don, one other thing related to that, in the end, we're proposing our budget now, the House is as well, and the governor has as well. And in the end, the three of us will all get together and have to come to some sort of agreement. The governor has said no earmarks, but even at the end of last session, when we almost got a bonding bill done with a lot of transportation, there was still some sense that if we all agreed that those kind of things could be in there. And so we'll see what those negotiations look like.
Senator Gazelka, do you or Senator Chamberlain have a response to the House Republican budget proposal today, especially when it comes to tax cuts? They've one-upped you.
Can you believe that?
Several hundred million up to you. So can you respond to their proposal?
Can I just say the House is the House? No, it's an inside joke. But the House, they put together an aggressive tax relief bill. It's interesting when the Senate's going to work with the House and the number likely will get higher. But then in the end, it's, the two of us and the governor. And the governor put out a letter that said that, he wanted overall targets in the end of April. I want that as well. It may mean that the three of us are negotiating before we even pass a bill. That's the part we'll have to see. His number is $300 million, and really, if you look at actual tax relief, it's lower than that. But those are the two numbers we're going to have to work with. But we didn't expect them to have the exact same numbers as we did on a number of them. HHS, according to forecasts, they're lower. But as you all know, the overall spending is still $2 billion higher in HHS than it was last year.
They also don't do the income tax cuts. Is that still your preferred method?
Yes. The Senate is the Senate. We're going to lead on the things that we think affect the middle-class Minnesotans, and that is one, and the Social Security income tax is another one that we're looking at. And but we have to figure out an agreement that includes the signature by the governor at the end, and that's something I'm very much committed for.
Can you give us a number on the income tax rate now that you've had the weekend to think about it?
I don't, the overall number, I don't have that today. Sorry, Dan.
When do you expect these budget bills to be on the floor?
Well, they're coming very soon. It really depends. Here's one thing I'll tell you. The tax bill, in many years, you didn't get the announcement on the tax bill till April 15th. So we are way, way ahead of time. But as a result of trying to communicate more with you, some of it, the details just take a little longer. But we want to give you the general direction that we're going so you can see what we're trying to do.
The Speaker said he expects them the first week of April on the House floor. Is that too early for you?
No, we want to get most of them done and signed before our break, so that as we go into break, some of the conference committees can even start working if they want to. We want to give the governor as much time as possible to come to the table, to work with us so that we actually finish good bills, that all of the legislators get to see them. They're not done at the very end of day or night, and only a few people got to see it. I think that'll be better policy done in the end, and that gives us the ability to finish on time as well.
Does the Senate budget leave anything on the bottom line?
It does. I don't have the number in front of me, but we intentionally left some on the bottom line. There's a number of other issues that people are talking about that we have to fix. One is the pension issue. We want to make sure there's enough money for broadband as we expand that, and so we intentionally left some on the bottom line.
And how much of a bonding bill does the debt service cover?
I don't have that number in front of me right now. All right, well, thank you, guys. You have a good day.
Hi, folks. We'll just give folks a minute to scoot out, and then we'll have Democrats here for you.
Ready? Right, well, welcome to my press conference, everyone. Just kidding. I'm State Senator Scott Dibble. I'm the Democratic lead, the DFL lead on the Senate Transportation Committee. And so I just wanted to provide a very quick initial response to the plan that we just heard rolled out by the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, Senator Newman, and Majority Leader Paul Gazelka. I just heard this for the first time a few minutes ago, but huddled in the back to try to analyze these numbers very quickly. So I just wanted to leave you with one number, if you don't pull any other number out of my comments or this press conference, and that is $117 million. That is the amount of new money that's going into our state trunk highway system. That's it, $117 million. This $3.6 billion over 10 years is largely a fiction, and it's largely dollars that are either already existing and allocated or being appropriated on a one-time basis or simply borrowing. I'll walk you through the numbers very quickly here. So we see that the Senate Republican plan calls for $400 million from auto-related sales taxes. So those are dollars that flow currently into the general fund, dollars that we currently use for education, for health care, for property tax relief, for public safety, for any number of uses that we use the general fund for. And so I will concede as new money to transportation, yes. It's certainly not new money to the state of Minnesota. These are dollars that we use to educate our kids, to fund our college system, et cetera. The $117 million from MnDOT flex spending, that's existing money in the Trunk Highway Fund. And those are dollars that right now flow to local units of government for the purpose of county turnbacks. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but the short version is these are dollars that we use to support local road funding purposes. $53 million in savings from MnDOT efficiencies. Well, MnDOT is already documenting $70 million per biennium in efficiencies, and they're reallocating those dollars for roadway purposes. So you need to take $117 million and $53 million out. $466 million in federal grants. I can't, for the life of me, figure out why they count that as new money. Those are federal dollars flowing through the FAST Act, and these are dollars that are already accounted for in the budget, the governor's budget. These certainly aren't any dollars that the Republicans can lay any claim to. Those are existing dollars in the budget that come from the federal government. $300 million in trunk highway bonds. Again, they're adding this as over and above the dollars in the trunk highway tax distribution fund. That's just borrowing. That's just borrowing against those existing resources. So if you take $400 million and take 95% of that, and then take 29.9, 62% that goes to the trunk highway fund system, 29% that goes to the county state aid highway system, and the 9% that goes to municipal state aid system. The math that, I didn't actually do the math, I'm relying on someone else's math. That's $117 million per year that goes into the state highway system. A far cry from the minimum $250 million we need per year just to maintain what we have. This bill moves us backwards as a state, I'm sad to say. This is wholly inadequate. It completely fails to address transit. Right now, we are facing a $90 million biennial deficit in Metro Transit general fund needs. $24 million of that is a deficit to the Metro Mobility program. Metro Mobility, of course, is paratransit that serves seniors and people with disabilities. Just about $18 million of that is inflation, and then we need to address the growing needs on the regular route bus system. This is completely outside of the entire discussion about whether or not rail is a worthwhile investment for our region and our state. With almost 800,000 people coming to this metro area, I don't know where on earth we're going to put those folks on our roads, especially if we're not even building any roads. We're barely keeping up with what we have. We've got, statewide, over 1 million folks who are going to be coming to our state. 800,000 of those are going to end up in the metro area, and we're not going to provide any form of transit or transportation, much less serve those who are trying to get to school, seniors who are trying to stay active and mobile in their own communities, and trying to attract the millennial workers of the next age. So I'm happy that Senator Newman has such a focus on transportation. He wants to make that a priority for this session. I would say to Senator Newman, he needs to go back to his colleagues and go back to Majority Leader Gazelka and start over again and put some real money on the table. We have Susan Kent, who's also on our committee, who would like to share a few thoughts.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Susan Kent, State Senator from Woodbury and the Assistant DFL Leader for the Senate. And Senator Dibble has well covered a lot of the details of this. I just want to reiterate that we've been very clear for a number of years now that to really take care of Minnesota's transportation system, to take care of our infrastructure, that which really is the economic engine of our whole state, we have got to do much better than what we've just heard today. There had been bipartisan agreement that we needed to be spending $600 million a year for 10 years. And even if you agree with all of these numbers, which I think Senator Dibble has accurately described, it's not new money, but even if you were to say this is new money, it's only $3.6 billion. I think it is completely disingenuous to go to Minnesotans and say, hey, we're going to take care of your transportation system, when in fact, we're falling far, far short of that, and we're misleading them in what we're doing. Transportation and infrastructure is too important. We are a growing state with growing needs, and we need to step up to meet those needs. Thank you.
Questions?
Senator, what would the impact be of this decommitting to the operational costs of future light rail transit?
That would kill light rail transit in the metropolitan area. Senator Newman was reluctant to say so, and Senator Osmek, I think, was anxious to get up to the microphone and say, we're trying to kill LRT. That's exactly what they're trying to do.
So even if CTIP breaks up and Hennepin County takes over the primary funding, that wouldn't be enough to keep the operational costs going?
I believe, yeah, so the question was, if CTIP breaks off in Hennepin County and the counties levy back the full half cent, I think you're right, that would be insufficient to pay for 50% of the operating of the new transit ways, which would be LRT, bus rapid transit, those sorts of things. Let me say before I forget, transit isn't just a metropolitan area need, it's a greater Minnesota need as well, and there's not one nickel in here for greater Minnesota transit either. And greater Minnesota transit is a crucial need for all the reasons that they're a need for folks in the metropolitan area. I'll also say that a crucial way that we build communities that function effectively and safely for everyone, again, kids, seniors, and as well as thriving business corridors and business districts in the towns around the state, is to build bicycle and pedestrian facilities. And there's no mention of bicycle or pedestrian funding opportunities in their presentation either.
Senator, back to light rail then. Is that the intent of this, to kill it? You have to deal, both of you, with all of these bills this year, restricting it, cutting it, eliminating it, doing all sorts of different things. Is that the intent of this?
Well, it's hard for me to speak to other legislators' motives. However, I can report on various emails and communications that have been in the media and in other places where Republican legislators have asked for or have committed their political capital to killing light rail transit. And I think for that matter, all forms of transitway kind of express transit service and a real belief in, in just a road and bridge policy only. Also, I'm just remembering now as I'm speaking, I think on Friday, most, if not all, the Republicans in the legislature signed a letter to the new transportation secretary asking her to not authorize a full funding grant agreement for Southwest LRT.
So not only is the 50% that would kill the new light rail transit, what does that say to light rail transit in the future anywhere in Minnesota?
Well, I would say that under this proposal and under the number of the policy proposals that are moving through the legislature, there would be no additional light rail transit built in Minnesota, in the metropolitan area.
Would you expect the governor or urge him to obviously stop this and protect transit?
Right. Let me be very, very clear, because I think we get boxed into this narrative or this kind of binary. LRT is the grand solution to everything and to the exclusion of everything else. LRT in certain places has a cost benefit that is extremely advantageous to our metropolitan area. In other places, it's another kind of solution. It's bus rapid transit, or it's local express service, it's local route service, it's the last mile connections through bike and ped. I think it's been shown time and time again, well-planned, well-executed light rail transit lines have a tremendous benefit to those metropolitan areas that invest in them.
Your goalie on this?
Well, we're 33 votes of 34 in the Senate and even less in the House. So yeah, we'll be relying heavily on our partnership with the governor to help outline the contours of any final deal that we get to, if we can get to any.
What about the argument that your adversaries make that light rail is too permanent, that it's easier to move bus lines than to move rail lines, and why commit ourselves for a century of steel in certain contexts?
Right. Well, that's exactly the benefit and the strength of light rail transit. That is, its permanency creates the kinds of land use investments and the kinds of development around light rail that creates the benefit for the expense. Any form of transportation is a loss leader. It's an investment. It doesn't support itself. It's subsidized, just like we do with education, just like we do with a lot of public services. Little kids don't pay for themselves in school. They pay for themselves, when they turn 20, 25, and they have great jobs and have great ideas, and they add to the economy. Likewise, transportation is an investment in something larger than itself. Light rail transit is one of those things that's shown to attract new ridership, to attract new kinds of workers to your region. It attracts an efficiency of land use. It attracts the kind of development that wouldn't occur otherwise. And because of the permanency of it, that's what allows the private sector to put their own dollars on the table and make those kinds of investments versus a bus that may well be moved tomorrow. Why would I invest in an employment campus or an educational campus or some other set of services and amenities if I don't have a clientele or a bunch of people coming to that spot on a reliable, regular basis?
And I would just add very quickly to that, that is true for fixed guideway bus rapid transit as well. That's a lower cost version, but it's the same thing. It has that permanency, it creates that infrastructure, and it attracts that economic development that we need.
Great, thank you.